everyone. Hey, welcome to the Destined Life podcast. We are so excited to be back with another episode and to be here with part four, I believe, part four of the Destined Relationships series. I'm just so excited to be able to do this with these beautiful ladies that I have here with me. Can you all say hello? So I'm going to start off with Monay. Can you say hello to the audience?
Hi, everybody. So excited to be here.
Yes, you have Tabitha here. You can say hello.
Hey, sis. Hey, y'all. Hey, ladies.
Okay, and we got Kendra here.
What up, though? Excited to be here. Hi, ladies.
I am so excited they are here. This is, I'm really happy to be able to finally do this. I've been wanting to do this episode for the longest, and it's finally happening. We're going to be talking about it all. I'm so excited. But before we get into it, I wanted to see where everybody's at. We have this segment called What is Self-Care for You Right Now, which is a reoccurring segment that we have on the podcast. Tabitha, I'm going to go with you first. What is self-care for you right now, honestly?
Oh, and as you call my name, something just dropped in my head, and I tilted my head, and my thoughts immediately went to balance. And that's what self-care has been to me right now, balancing all areas and aspects of my life. I'm completing my doctoral program, also a wellness coach, but being an entrepreneur, there's so many things. It's behind the scenes, and then also trying to take care of myself and my family's care. My mom's health has been a challenge as of late. So balance, and then still trying to be me and date and go out and have a social life. I did a reel about this just this week about like us high performing women having a social life and, dating and all of that. It's so important. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
I love that one. Yes, I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate. Kendra, what is self-care for you right now?
Yeah, I gotta agree with Tabitha right there. Being a high performing woman is definitely a challenge. Self-care for me right now looks like really just taking the time and being intentional with my time. So when I am with other people, I'm intentional about the fact that I'm there, that I'm present in the spaces and places that I'm in. When I'm taking time to do the things that I need to, the journaling, or just kind of like having my quiet time and, just singing in the shower, I'm there, like being very intentional about that. Other than that, roller skating has been my self-care. I kind of just had that moment where, I feel like I'm in roll bounce or something, and the song, the music is just playing, and I'm all in. So that's, just a little bit of something of what I've been working on as far as self-care right now.
That's cool. I don't know how to skate. That's never been something that I could do. I just don't feel like that's my calling. But that's amazing. That's great. That's awesome.
Same.
Balance for it.
Same.
Well, I haven't really tried. I just like, I'm about to know. But anyway,
I want to relearn, but I've had hard experiences. But I'll try.
Okay, see, we can work this out. We can hang out and skate. See, there you go.
Yes. Monday, what is self-care for you right now?
Self-care for me is giving myself permission to step away. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner. And so, especially being a stay-at-home mom, being around my two youngest all the time can kind of feel a little overwhelming because we live in a city, we live in Charlotte, and so all of our family is in Michigan. And so when I do have opportunities where I can step away and just wear the Monay hat and not have all of my other hats on, and I can be around other people to where it's not like I have to be responsible for you, I have to make sure you eat, I have to make sure you get to the bathroom, and I can just focus on me. I have to give myself permission to do that because I feel like often I restrict myself in not allowing myself to take other hats off. So giving myself permission to step away, take a moment, take an evening, whatever that looks like on any given day, just making sure that I'm being attentive to myself as much as I'm being attentive to the people around me.
Yes, that is amazing. You're in a whole different season of life right there. That's great. That's great. I'm wanting that for you. That's great. I'm not there at all, but that's something I can't even give advice on that one. Anyway,
That's
Women
where
are
I
the big
aim
ones.
to be too.
Yes.
That's where I aim to be too, girl.
Yes.
You better go ahead. The Miller Initiative. You better go ahead, girl.
Period.
I love that headline.
I love it. I love it. You guys, we are here talking about relationships. We're talking about dating specifically as a Christian woman. Dating right now in 2021 is already something as it is, but dating as a Christian woman is very different. When you're really trying to live for God, and you try to do what He say. It's hard out here. I know I could say it is. It's hard out here. I don't know about these other people, but I know it's hard. It's hard out here for us or whatever. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to ask these questions. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into what it's like, all of it. And I want to ask you all, what is the difference between, because I had the guys on here last week, at the guys, and I talked with them and I gave them the exact same questions. And I just want to see what the difference is, what the difference gonna be between the men and the women, because they had some perspectives that I didn't hear. I was like, I don't feel that way. But then there's some women, I know I got the women this week, so I'm very excited to hear what y'all gonna say. So the first question is, 2021, as we already know, is a little different. So what is the difference between dating now and dating back then, like for our parents and maybe when you were a little bit younger or whatever? Like, what was dating like? What's the difference now versus back then? Kendra, can you go ahead and take that one?
Ooh, okay. So one, we're still whatever this is, but the whole panini that's outside, i.e. the pandemic, that creates a lot of change in regards to what dating looks like now. You have a space where, for a long time, people couldn't go outside because people had to quarantine for whatever reason. So now we're in a situation where a lot of people are starting to meet people online. And I know, like, back when I grew up in the 90s, like, online dating was very much an extreme taboo. Like, when you looked and you knew somebody who was dating online, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Whereas now I feel like it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more, people are a lot more comfortable with it, especially during the time when COVID was at its highest and people couldn't go anywhere. People definitely use social media as a means to get more in contact with people. But also, I think we talk about a sense of privacy when you're talking about social media, when we're talking about people in relationships and dating. When is it the proper time to put your significant other up on social media and stuff like that? So I feel like you have a lot more eyes and hands in people's relationships, depending on the person and the couple and what their expectation and how they believe privacy is supposed to go for their actual relationship.
Yes, I love that. I agree with you 100%. I'm interested to hear Monay's perspective as a married woman. Because I know you be posting and stuff. If y'all don't follow her, y'all should follow her. She has some great little stuff. I'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't know you was like that or whatever, but that's cool. Anyway, as a married woman, do you feel like there's more pressure on you now that there's social media, like versus, back when there wasn't nothing, nobody really knew if you didn't say nothing. So do you feel like there's pressure on you from the social media thing? Perspective, whatever.
When you say pressure on me, what do you mean by pressure on me?
Pressure. Yeah, like pressure on you as a wife, or pressure and also pressure on your relationship that you have with you and your husband. Like, do you feel like there's pressure?
So the reason why I'm going to say no, and this is me personally, I'm sure there's a lot of women who do feel like there's a certain level of pressure, especially when you take into consideration, we live in a filter, selfie, Photoshop society. And so when you look at social media, you're only getting a glimpse of somebody's life. But a lot of times when you look at social media, well, the average person looks at social media, they take the glimpse and they think that that's the staple of what that person's standard of life is. And so for me, I don't necessarily feel pressure because I'm aware of these things. I know that I'm only getting, this 5-minute video or this reel of your life. And I know that there's more to that. I know that for the most part, people only show the pretty side of things. They don't necessarily pull back the veil and say, hey, this is what it's really like. So I don't necessarily feel a need to perform or to be a certain way or to do certain things as a wife. And I don't necessarily feel like my relationship is being compared to what I see on social media, more or less because I'm aware of the fact that people put on a good face in front of a camera, whether they're taking a picture or making a reel. And a lot of times people don't necessarily want the real side of the situation to necessarily be exposed or looked at. but I can understand and see why people who are looking to be in a relationship or people who are married might feel a certain pressure or a need to rise to the occasion because of social media.
I love that. I think that's amazing because there's so many couples online, these YouTube couples, the Instagram couples, the whatever you want to call it. They all up on here and they're there. And if they break up, it's gonna be a whole thing. I don't know if you all know of Dear and Ken, but they were like the main YouTube Black couple. It was just like, oh, Dear and Ken. And they broke up or whatever. So people are like sad, they were just so invested in them. And it's sad because it's just like everybody's into this thing of, everything is just great. And then also seeing that, okay, they breaking up. Wait, hold on. Y'all not supposed to do that. It's like a movie with a bad ending. It's like, wait, no, everything's supposed to be perfect, and not really seeing that sometimes it don't work out. Sometimes there is cheating. There is some bad stuff that may happen, and it's, I feel like social media and it can kind of have this thing of, everything is perfect, like how you were saying, but it's not always that way, it's not. I feel like when it comes to dating, I asked him in this last week, I asked him if do you feel like there was more pressure on them when it comes to the dating season? And you have to listen to that episode to find out their answers. But to you, for you all as women, do y'all feel like there's more pressure on the woman in dating, or do you feel like there's more pressure on the man in dating, Kendra?
Yes, I think, and I'm not just saying that because I am a woman, but I'm saying that because I am a woman. So yeah. I think that there's a lot of pressure. And just being completely transparent, I'm a 31-year-old single woman. So there's a lot of pressure that comes from people in my family, people who learn or might meet me, or, there's an assumption that I'm a mom already or anything else. And I'm like, no, it's just me and Jesus right now. And people put this thought process, and I don't think people always necessarily think that it's pressure. Sometimes it's just good intentions. Like my family and my friends, they know that I want to be married. They know that that's my heart's desire. I desire, marriage and kids. And like we all said, I'm trying to get where Monay is. Like I'm trying to step my life game up in that sense. But I definitely think that there is a lot of pressure on women when people make comments about, your biological clock is ticking, and, being concerned about, what age frame you're in and when you can still have kids and all this other stuff. So I definitely think that there's a lot of pressure on women. I doubt if the men said that, but that's what I think personally.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. It's your answer, so it's totally fine. Yeah. Monay, the question is, do you feel like there's more pressure on the man, or do you feel like it's more pressure on the woman when it comes to dating?
I want to say that there probably is more pressure on the woman, only because, and this is also piggybacking off of what Kendra said, as in our time frame of life, because I'm in my 30s too, it's an expectation like, well, if you're 30, like, well, can you, what do you bring to the table? There's all these things of what do you bring to the table? It's not necessarily this idea of this is what I've built on my own and I'm standing in my own right, fully whole in the Lord. It's just like, well, what else do you bring to the table? All right, you got this degree. Well, what else? Can you cook? Do you clean? Do you do all of these other things? And I think also when you're fully trying to live for God, it's like, I'm trying to keep myself. I want to be pure. I want to do this right. I want to do all these other things. But then you have people from the peanut gallery remind you of your biological clock. And it's like, in due season and in due time, everything is made perfect. And so I think it's that pressure of, all right, I need to hurry up and find a man, or, all right, I need to hurry up and make sure that I'm doing X, Y, and Z, when the reality is God's timing is perfect. But societal pressure would make you second guess or become unsure or think, well, I mean, he ain't that bad. He's a guy, but he might not be the guy, but I can change him. I can fix him. I can do all of these things. And so in addition to societal pressure, I think women also put pressure on themselves to, one, try to be this person that this specific man might want, but two, to try to have this pressure of you coming into this situationship, relationship, whatever it might be, and saying, okay, how can I come in here and maneuver and navigate and essentially be manipulating how this man can be better? What can I do? How can I get him to where he needs to be? And it might not even necessarily be malicious, but I just think sometimes we can view a situation and forget that God is adding the super to our natural. We don't have to go out of our way to try and get somebody to be something else. We just simply have to allow that person to be and let God do what he gonna do. And if he ain't gonna do it for you in this situation, then that might not be for you. So I think there's just a lot of pressure from a lot of different angles on women.
For sure. I know for me, because I know this whole thing of, the woman got to cook. I heard you say that. And I decided and I made it up in my mind that that's just not something that I'm going to go for. I'm okay about learning. Like, if he know how to cook, that's why I already told my family, my husband will be a chef. And I already know the Lord going to do it for me. I just think it's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. I was like, he can cook for me. I will support him. I will try it. I think I'm great at eating. I just feel like I'm better in that area, and I feel like that's okay, and I've accepted that. I really have. Tabitha, but for real, I'm not even joking. Like, I really been praying for it. Tabitha, when it comes to dating, do you feel like there's more pressure on the man or the woman? What do you feel?
Side note, before I answer the question, you can definitely get a man that will cook for you. My father was the chef in our home. He mostly cooked, and this day he still does it. Yeah, so girl, we gonna listen. Yes. We're gonna either you're gonna get you a chef or you're gonna have the funds to afford a chef.
Come on now.
Either one. Right. It's good to go. But I agree with everything that you mentioned, Monay. I know I got kicked off and came back on, and there was something I wanted to mention earlier, but I definitely do agree that there is a pressure on the women, even down to bodily wise, how to look a certain way, how to behave a certain way, how to respond a certain way, instead of coming from the approach that, okay, there's different flavors of women for different flavors of men, and everyone isn't in a cookie cutter. Everyone doesn't have to be in the same cookie cutter because God made us different, and we all like different things. We have different likes and dislikes, and whomever is for us will be exactly for us. But I think it's just interesting for us to just take a moment and step back to really think about, with women, we kind of respond to the pressure a little bit more anxiously than men do. Men have more of an avoidant sort of attachment style to the pressure. They more than likely they're the ones that's running away from commitment. So I think that the symptoms, although different with men, having commitment issues versus women being more anxious and more attached and saying, okay, I need that ring. I need to be married by such and such date. I wanted to be married at 25, like when my mom got married. And I'm like, who would have thought? That is a lie from hell. I am 32, but it goes to show you just the differences that I think also what I've come to realize is the society at a young age also puts in our mind a certain image. And when you take a look at yourself and you realize, like, man, at 32, I'm still not, I have goals. I've met a certain space. I have a certain level of self-development. I have a certain level of career readiness and life readiness, but I'm still not there yet. You can't necessarily expect a complete vast difference from where the level that you are. So I think it also begs to show exactly what you're looking for and what you're ready for, because what I was looking for back in my 20s is exactly what I got. And it led to me being right here. I didn't put investment to my dating life. I wanted to explore, being raised in the church, I wanted to explore more than anything. But yeah.
Oh, I feel that's Florida. It's like, oh no, I've been wanting to go. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the church. That was my second home. I probably was there more than my own house. And I was waiting. I was like, when, Lord, when? That's how you feel sometimes. Anyway, I love y'all's answers. I think it's really cool. Very interesting. You guys' answers. I do feel like when it comes to dating, I know for me, I'm 20, so this is a little different probably. But when it comes to dating, I think it also has to do with how you were raised and what your parents expect and how they're feeling. If your parents are pressuring you, or were they like, oh yeah, you need to get married, or were they like, no, I want you to do this and have your time. So I feel like that also goes into play. There's some parents that are out there that like, hey, it's almost time, and then there's some other ones that are like, oh, do whatever. It also matters on what, like how you were saying, how your parents were married at a certain age or whatever, and you're looking at that as well. My parents got married like kind of, my dad got married really young, whatever. So I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh shoot, I only got because he got married, I believe, at like 22. And I mean, I got 2 more years, and I'm like, I know I ain't nowhere near that right now. So I just like, oh, well. But I just realized it's your life. You can do it. It's your life. It's your path, and God got you at the end of the day. That's all that really matters. I'm curious to know what you all think because we got into it a little bit, but what are the expectations you feel are of a Christian woman when it comes to dating? What do you feel like a guy thinks and feels like, oh yeah, this is what I expect from you as a Christian woman? Tabitha, what do you feel?
Honestly, I don't know what they think or feel. I know what the church has told us what they think or feel. I think and I'm not even coming in an aggressive way to the church, but it's you just never have those type of dialogues with them. You sort of come in with your pre-made assumptions and your pre-made notions based on what you've learned, based on what you've read, based on the stories that you've read in the Bible. We're taught to believe that I think it's the story of Jacob and Rachel, that a man should be waiting 14 years for us. And not saying that doesn't happen. However, everything around us right now in society tells us the complete opposite, from the TV screen to even what we also see in the house and in our families. So I think that I'm sorry, I just forgot the question. My bad. I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is expected of a Christian woman from a man? Yeah. That.
Yeah. So I don't think that I've ever had that conversation of what is expected, especially in the church confines. For me, dating has been a mix of, and mostly people that have been outside of the church, that I've been able to have more open conversation and more heart and honest, vulnerable conversations about how they truly feel about, and where I've been able to express myself in those spaces too, outside of judgment, So yeah.
I like that you mentioned that. I think that's cool. I'm very sure there are a lot of women out there who are like, yes, I totally agree. And in in our next episode, when we have everybody together, we gonna get a little bit more into this church thing, and we gonna get on that subject, because I know that's really a whole series within itself. Monay, how do you feel? What do you think is expected of a Christian woman right now?
So I will say that it depends on the man. But if we're just doing like a broad answer, I will say, I think what most men are just expecting is somebody that they could build with. Usually you're looking through a lens of like a checklist, or does she have this attribute? Does she have this, that, or the other? At least that's what we're told, and we're not told in the church, but that's kind of like the underlying tone. Like, well, she ain't slept with nobody, has she? Or she ain't out partying and drinking, is she? But really, a man is looking for somebody he could build with. Can I be open and honest with you? Can I talk to you? Can you share your dreams and be vulnerable with me? Can we have a conversation where you're going to be transparent? Can you allow me to actually, cover you? Can you listen to me when I'm actually talking and not just wait for your opportunity to respond? They're looking for partnership. And I think a lot of times, in terms of like being in the church, we don't get that conversation. We just get this blanket statement of, well, if you want to be somebody's wife, you have to do X, Y, and Z, which is kind of the few things that I mentioned earlier. But we don't really go in depth in terms of what does it look like to be in a partnership, a covenant. What does that look like? Because ultimately that's what they're looking for. The whole idea of Eve being, made from Adam's rib, taken from his side. They're looking for somebody that they could, build a future with, a legacy, generational wealth, all of these different things. And I think if the conversation is had, then it normalizes it. And so it's not necessarily something that, we're walking into blindly or confused or not really understanding. And I think in the dating world, the conversation of expectations isn't really had, because I think people don't want to fall short. Like, well, I want to be good enough, so I don't want to open up this can of worms and be truthful and honest about who I am, what I believe, and where I fall short, because then if I do that, I might not meet this checkbox. And so to avoid all of that, we're just not gonna have this conversation.
I love that. I feel like you kind of, when you said there are certain things, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were saying that there are certain things about yourself that you may not want to mention, or you may not want to talk about during the dating season. And I guess kind of being vulnerable with the person and just say, I went through this, or, I'm like this, people think I'm like that, but really I'm struggling, or, whatever. So I definitely think that's important. And I believe that because I'm not married or anything, but I do know that when marriage comes, some of those things will be exposed. And I feel like that has led to a lot of divorces, or that's led to a lot of different problems within relationships. I feel from what I could see and what I've, seen around me, that has happened. So that can cause a lot of people to be like, when it comes to marriage or whatever. So I definitely think that I love that perspective. And I love that you said that. Kendra, what do you feel like is expected of a Christian woman?
I really think it just kind of varies on the culture of that particular group of men, if I would say, because I think to a certain extent, I agree with both of these ladies. Like, I agree that a man desires partnership, but if that's not communicated to a man, that he sees his wife being a partner, then he's not going to understand that that's something that he wants. I also agree with Tabitha in the sense that, do we really know what men really want? Because in a sense, to point back what Monay said, like, it comes from a place of being extremely honest. And what I've realized more now than ever is, and this isn't just a man situation, this is just a human situation right now. People really don't have a clear, concise understanding as to who they are. And I think that's how we end up in situations where people are very afraid to tell people the truth, because humanity is prescribed to all of us. That's why we all need Jesus. And if I'm not willing to be honest about the fact that, yes, I'm a Christian, I'm a woman of faith, I'm a woman of integrity, but sometimes I can really get on your nerves just because there are certain things about me that might rub something in you the wrong way, then we're in very dangerous territory as people overall. So I can't really say that I necessarily know what men expect from women. It's the obvious, like to cook and to clean, and, but that's not necessarily every man's expectation based off of what he saw in the household. I have male friends that, one of my male friends, he is very much the man who cooks and he washes clothes and all that stuff, because in his life, that's been his role all his life. So in his household, that's what it looks like. So I can't really just give a blanket statement to say, like, this is what men want. I think it really just depends on the culture of what that group of men, or that space that man is being brought up in, what that looks like. But I think there are a lot of people and some people who are just afraid to say, hey, I don't know what it is that I want right now. I know I want companionship. That's a good place to start. But what does companionship look like for you? So.
Yes, and I definitely think that's a question that needs to be asked during the dating season. That reminds me, I want to talk about, I feel like it's important for me. I know when it comes to dating and when it comes to, because we're going to get into that a little bit later, talking about, marriage being down the road, because I know some people it's not like that. But if marriage is down the road, there are a lot of conversations that need to be had. Some are very comfortable and they're fun conversations, and other ones can be very uncomfortable and can be very like, I don't want to talk about that because I don't even feel comfortable talking to myself or there's some things that you don't even want to admit to God, and God knows everything, but there's some certain things you don't even want to talk to him about. You like, I don't want to say it, like, you know what I mean, whatever. But but there are different conversations that you need to have, and I want to know if you all can give me some examples of different conversations that need to be had with the person that you may be dating or courting or whatever. What type of conversations need to be had, Monay?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
Conversations that need to be had. I think the first conversation that will be the most beneficial is, what do boundaries look like to you? Um, I mean, that could be a matter of like a curfew that you all set with one another. That could be like a physical affection expression boundary. That could be a boundary regarding certain conversations you do or don't have. There's a lot of different things that you could decide to implement in terms of making sure that you're cultivating or creating a safe space for the relationship that you may be trying to establish. Did I answer
I
your
like
question?
that. Yeah, no, yeah, that was a good one. Boundaries for sure, for sure. Tabitha, what is a conversation that you feel like should definitely be had during the dating season?
I think that one of the questions that I like asking, and I'll ask it on a first date too, is I'll ask them what character traits or personal development areas in yourself that you have worked on in the last year or two that you recognize that you needed to change. I asked that question for two reasons, because it shows me, one, where the person is coming from, where their baseline was, where the gutter was, where the worst of the worst was, and it shows me the trajectory. And two, it shows me the trajectory of where they want to go and how they are working on themselves. Because I think self-reflection, and kind of goes back to Monay's answer for the last question, self-reflection and honest self-awareness about your habits, good, bad, and the ugly, and to be able to be in a confident space to communicate that with someone else shows me that you have been able to face yourself, and you have been able to face the worst of the worst, and you have accepted that, and you are moving on from it. And I think that shows a lot of emotional growth too.
Can I add something?
Yes, yes.
So
right before you add something, lastly, I just want to go back to that last question about the whole, okay, what do you think men are looking for? I think that question is even rooted in, you need to be somebody else other than you are to let somebody else accept you. You know, instead of looking to yourself and recognizing and realizing, like, okay, what do I even need or want in a man? What makes me smile? I think a lot of us are looking at social media or looking at, oh, these what you call it, the proposals. Not that I'm not bagging on the proposals and all of the couple goals and the black love at all, because I follow them and I love them. But I think that we have to start to learn ourselves to be able to communicate to others how to love us, because they're not going to know it. It's not like it's going to download in their brains. You know, we have to be able to give them the roadmap a bit. And if they love us enough, they will be able to actually walk down that road and with us of love. So, yeah.
Love that. That was good. That was good. Monday, did you say you wanted to add something?
Yeah,
to
just
her?
part of the conversations that need to be had, I would say, and she kind of touched on this a little bit, but just looking forward, like, where do you see yourself? And I know people kind of shy away from that because they're like, oh, why are you trying to be so deep? But it's really not. Like, do you have any vision? Do you have any any idea or perception of, even, you don't have to have it all figured out, but what direction do you want to move in? I mean, that alone will tell you a lot. Like, is this a man who can cast a vision? Is this a man who can kind of take charge and decide, these are the goals that I want to accomplish, that I've set for myself, and this is how I'm going to get it done? Like, can you even project into your future and say, you know, this month I'm doing this and I'm doing this because in 6 months I need to be here, and in a year I'm going to need to be here. So today I need to start X, Y, and Z. That will show you this is somebody who can lead a family. That will show you this is somebody who has habits of making sure that they're constantly being disciplined. This is somebody who appreciates self-development. And so just having conversations on, where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? What are your goals? How do you want to build? What's something that you want to leave behind if you decide you want to have children? What does that look like? Just having these hypothetical, futuristic type of questions at least gives you an idea of, okay, now I can kind of see how this person at least thinks. I can see how they can cast vision. I can see how they can make goals for themselves. So I think that part would be a huge conversation to have during the dating phase.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
flip the
sure.
script, flip the script. We are the prize. We also got to vet them too. And I think there's an underlying notion that they just need to vet us. No, we got to see how they make decisions, how they handle tough conversations when they're angry, even family situations. What's their family dynamic? But absolutely. If we think about the queen bee, if we look at the nature, the queen bee is protected and she got workers, okay? She got workers and they work for her and she is guarded and protected. So we have to also have learned to have that mindset. Not saying that we out here trash and we think we do the queen bee. No, we also have the self-development, but we also need to take ownership and pride in who we are as a woman and how much we give naturally at a baseline.
Yes, I love how you Monay, you mentioned doggone it, I missed it. I don't forgot it. Oh, you mentioned about them having goals and stuff and just seeing, you know, where they want to go. Because that's something that I look at for sure. You know, somebody says that they, even if you're a person that don't know what your goals are, I know at my age it's more okay for them not to know what they want to do. Like it's a little bit, if you're a little older, it's like, okay, cool. But I feel like you know, at that age, I'm used to people not knowing what they want to do. I know what I want to do, but you know, I'm used to that. But I want to see during this process, during this time of you not knowing, what are you doing? Are you just gonna sit at, I'm sitting in my mama's basement, you know, and just playing video games all day? Or how are you figuring this out? Are you still gonna work? Because I want to know that if you still don't know, or something happened with a job, you know, while we married, you lose your job, are you still gonna try to find one, or are you gonna be like, oh, well, I need to figure out something? I'm waiting on God to, you know, send me a job. And God, like, can you fill out an application? You know, at least faith that works. You know, so that's something, you know, I think about, because I be like, because money, you know, I like to spend some things. I'm gonna be honest here. We both got to be successful. You know what I'm saying? Kendra, I didn't forget about you. What are conversations that you feel like we need to have?
So I am very much about asking those questions, having those discussions. I feel like, you know, to a certain extent, we kind of shy away from that because you feel like you're drilling somebody, unfortunately, but that's not always necessarily true. Like if I'm trying to get to know you, you're trying to get to know me. If we're asking questions, and that's how we get to know each other, by learning through like those hypotheticals, like, you know, and even talking about boundaries. I guess like some of the things that I also ask, in addition to the things that have already been mentioned, what does relationship with God actually look like in your life? And not to be deep, but just to have an understanding, because, you know, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Okay, now you have a relationship with God, but what does that actively look like in your everyday life? And not even just that, but how do you serve? Not just in your church, but in your community, the people that are around you, the people that you love. Talking about boundaries makes me automatically think, who is your accountability? Like, what does that look like? Because that accountability piece is a big thing, especially when you're talking about boundaries. I can't just be left to setting these boundaries by myself. These are the people and the players in my life who I am accountable to and I hold regard to. And just so you know, ahead of time, these are the people that when it's time to have that discussion of taking this to the next level, these are the people that are going to be not necessarily in the room, but these are the people that you're going to have those types of interactions with. So really thinking about that, what does your relationship look like with your family? I know that was something that Tabitha mentioned, like, you know, your mom, your siblings. What does that look like? Because that does all play a part in, if this is, you know, this is what is coming for me and this is going to be what God has for me, I need to have a insight to what your world looks like and how you operate and how you deal with, you know, the finances and how you deal with pressure and anger and rage and sadness and grief and death and all these different things. So yeah, I have a lot of questions. I mean, you know, and it's not, like I said, you don't just sit there and like, okay, this is my list of questions and I'm just gonna sit. No, but just in genuine conversation, I think people get so caught up in love that they don't even realize you may not even necessarily know the person that you're saying that you in love with. unless you actually sit down and have those conversations with that person. So those are just a couple of the things that I kind of, what's your love language? How do you accept love? Like, how do you receive love? How do you give love? How does your love language differ from mine? Could that be a possible issue that we run into in the future if this does go somewhere? So just different things like that. It just kind of depends on, how far into the conversations or how regularly on the dates or conversations we're getting into. But I'm all about asking the question. And vice versa. Ask me questions. I want him to ask me questions. I want him to get to know me. Like, say something that kind of like, oh, well, dang, I wasn't expecting you to ask that, but that's a good question. So yeah.
That's good, because you kind of touched there. I don't remember which one of y'all I spoke with about this, but I talked about experiences that you have to that I feel like you should go through before, and you should experience with that person before you get married. Like, I want to see what you like when you mad. I want to know what you do when you mad. Are you a person that gets angry? Do you use certain types of words? Do you call me out of my name? Do you like to put your hands on people? Are you one of those people that's gonna get up and act like you ain't know me for a couple of days and come back and be like, oh, I was just upset? No, it's a no for me. It's a no for me. But there are different experiences that you got to go through. I feel like there's just certain, and of course there are certain things that you're not going to know until you get married. I mean, I just feel like that's going to happen. But I feel like there's certain experiences that you need to go through. Okay, I want to see you during this time. Okay, during this grief, you just like your grandmother. How do you deal with that? Are you, what's going on? I want to see it. And there are certain experiences, because when it comes to like stuff like grief and dealing with, the loss of when it comes to like a loss of a relative or whatever, it could be different for different people. Like, them losing their grandmother may be different from them losing their mom, So, there's all of that too to go and play. But it's just like, I just want to see it, and I want to see what that looks like on you, because that's something you have to consider. I wanted, because you talked about relationship with God, Kendra, and I want to know. I think y'all probably kind of already gave your answer. Is it okay for you to date somebody who don't believe in God?
It's a no for me. It's a no for me. And just being completely honest, we sitting here having a conversation. I've done it before. Like, I've entertained, and not even somebody who didn't necessarily believe in God, but didn't have a relationship with God like I have a relationship with God. I've had people be very, feel indifference, or I've had men who looked at me as a woman, because I do serve, because I do, like, I'm very open about my relationship with God. I may not necessarily wear, I love Jesus shirt every day, but sometimes I do. And what does that mean to you? So I have dated guys who weren't Christians before, or guys not even necessarily who weren't Christians. Because we could get into a whole different discussion about that. Like, what does it mean to be a Christian? But I've dated guys who have, said like, I believe in God, but our lifestyles were different. And because of that, it caused a lot of chaos and it caused a lot of issues. I know that right now, like, my prayer, as I was younger, my prayer was like, okay, God, I want my husband to have this attribute. I want him to be the strong, quiet type and all this other stuff. And now I've gotten to a point where in my life where I'm like, God, just please allow me to meet the man who you have for me, and let his lifestyle complement mine as mine complements his. So yes, I have dated somebody who didn't get it, and we were on very different pages about that. And child, listen, it caused some chaos in our situation. And I thank God that I didn't make that a permanent choice or decision, and that I am free from that, because it's a no for me. So
Yes, I agree. I tried. I was like, but God,
he a nice guy. He nice.
I got you in me, and I can
help him. I can help him. I can bring him to church. He said he would go to church with me, and that man did. Don't.
It's so bad. about this because I just posted today. I just reposted on my Instagram one of the comedians, I forgot her name, but she was talking about how you try to convince God to let you date somebody who don't believe in him, and you just be like, but God, like this one, like I mean, he nice, so I can help him out, you know, whatever. And you be trying to do that. God, like I didn't tell you to do that. And then when your heart get broken, he like, I didn't tell you to go over there. You did that with yourself.
You know, they're sounding like Bryson Tiller, like Lord save him for me, and God, like what? Freely, this is a knock. I am a gentleman. There's a door, and yeah, never mind.
Listen, I have always tried to bring some people to church, especially even friends too. And guys like, they're not your friends. That's not your man. This is not for you.
That's not your man.
That's not your man.
That ain't it. Leave it alone.
That ain't it.
Walk away.
What about you, Monay? How do you feel about that? Dating somebody who don't believe in God?
I feel like that's just you're asking for a difficult situation by doing that. But even taking it a step further, someone who says, "Oh yeah, you know, I believe in God. Let me see your fruit, sir. Okay, I need to see the fruit. Are you somebody who just professes that they believe in God, or are you actually a disciple? Like, what are you doing?" That in and of itself, obviously that's a whole nother dynamic, but there are a lot of people who will tell you what you want to hear. And so you can't just necessarily take the lip service for face value. You have to actually sit and watch and look at the fruit, which is why you mentioned like being able to see somebody, like, what do you look like when you're sad, when you're happy, when you're grieving? It's very important to actually watch somebody go through seasons. Which is why I'm very pro be friends first, because you can actually get the outside perspective without necessarily being involved emotionally to see how do they treat people? How do they act when, you know, something bad happens? How do they act when they're going through a difficult time? What is the fruit that you're actually bearing throughout the different seasons and situations throughout your life? And so I would not recommend somebody who is a Christian who wants to be in a relationship to get into a relationship with somebody who does not identify as Christian. But even as taking it a step further, if someone identifies as Christian, but you don't actually see any fruit that would coincide with that, I would also not recommend that they do that.
Oh man, so I can't do it. Well, I tried anyway. I was hoping y'all was going to agree with me and David, you know. I'm kidding. But no, because you be trying. You just like, I just want to. I'm like, wait, why you gotta look like that? Like, why? You know, and then you looking at the one who is, you know, nice. It's just like, you know, whatever. Sometimes it can be like that. Tabitha, is there anything else you wanted to say to that about dating somebody who doesn't believe in God?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, when I reflect on being completely transparent and honest about my own personal walk with God, born and raised in the church, my father's a pastor. I remember a couple years, not even a couple years ago, maybe like 2016, 2017, I had found a quote that said, you date on the spiritual level that you're at. And I remember like really trying to, my mind dwelled on that quote for some time. Like, okay, am I really dating people who's a reflection of where I'm at spiritually with God? So what I would say is dating is a process. Dating is a journey. Even before you get to the point where you are with somebody and you are trying to see when they're upset or mad or how they handle a death in the family. That's way longer down the road than actually going through the dating process through the Hinge and the online apps to really take a look at this. You have to really start to take a look at the person's habits from the beginning sort of stages. And if we're talking about God, and back to when I was relating that quote to my life, I recognize that there's certain stages of my dating process that sort of reflected how well I knew God, because it started to reflect in my self-worth and how much I knew and understood about myself and how worthy I am in his eyes and how much more he has planned for me. So me personally, my dating life and my journey through dating has tied, and my journey with God has tied it hand in hand, even in reflection of my spiritual growth. Growing up when I was younger, I didn't really date guys that were in the church. I started to date. I had my longest relationship with a guy that was in the church, but I felt like for me it was very more ritualistic, habitual, more than anything. And as I've gotten deeper to learn myself and to learn who God is personally in my life, it thus has reflected in my dating life as well. And you attract different people, and you will have different experiences. And you're not going to want someone that does not believe in Christ or God, because you know what you have experience with him and the prayers he done answered in your journal. It's like there's no way, and it just won't happen.
Yes, that's important. I love that. I also wanted to discuss when it comes to dating, because we're talking about dating as a Christian, which is different from dating, as someone who is not. Do you all, because there's this thing now, if just, have fun. You're just having fun right now. Is that okay? When it comes to dating as a Christian, that you're just having fun, there's no future in mind. Is that okay to date for fun, Monay?
Okay, so if you are, let's say you're someone, because I actually have a friend who she's open to the idea of marriage. She's like, if the Lord brings somebody along, cool. If not, I'm fine. I think if you have two people who are cool with just, I guess, dating, and they have no actual desire to get married, if that's what they want to do, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. But personally, I would want to not necessarily question them, but just in the back of my mind, wonder like, to what degree would you be able to maintain your instinctual or natural desires and keep it at a place where you're able to have this just dating relationship while still pleasing the Lord, if you understand what I'm saying. And so I don't necessarily think it's bad, but it just seems like you would be putting yourself long-term in a potential compromising situation.
I like it. Kendra, what is, hold on, what was the question? Yes, what can you date for fun with no future in mind when it comes to Christian dating? Is that okay?
No. And I say no from a place of, I have dated before in my hot girl 20s, just based off of, I'm hungry and I want some attention. I'm gonna call such and such because I know that he isn't gonna mind going to dinner and giving me the attention that I need, or I want, because I didn't need it, but in that moment I felt like I needed it. And that's what I did. And my situation was, this was with a person who wasn't interested in being in a relationship, and I wasn't interested in being in a relationship with him. For me, it was, that's what we were doing. And that proves to put you in a position where, it doesn't produce anything but situationships, because that's exactly what it produced. Looked up one day and it's like, dang, we in a situationship. You don't want to be with me. I know you're not the will of God for me. And here we are. So yeah, like I've really been like very like honest about the fact that I've definitely been there before. As a woman, as a Christian woman, I'm not there in my life anymore. I will put, the one caveat that I will put though is, I think very often the church has had this role in telling women that they shouldn't date at all. And that is very, very problematic, because if you don't date, how you gonna meet somebody? You're not, you can very much, like I'm with Monay, like definitely developing a friendship with that person for sure. But when you decide that this is a possibility that you all could have more, that's room where, and that's where that boundaries and accountability and those conversations need to happen. You all need to date. So I think you have to be very mindful. And that's why I think of dating in different phases. Like there's a kicking it phase, and then there's an actual dating phase. If we just kicking it, that means I'm kind of getting to get a feel for you, you're getting a feel for me, or whatever else. If we make it to that dating phase, that makes sense. But I think very often the church is telling women that they shouldn't have a kick it phase. And it's like, if you don't have a kick it phase, you're not going to have a marriage phase. It's completely impossible. So you have to kind of find a balance in that. Because there are going to be times where you kick it with somebody, and the more you kick it with them, you be like, nah, I'm good on you. Like, or I've had guys kind of be like, I don't think you're a good fit. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not for everybody. I'm an acquired taste. So that's cool. But I think that we have to be very, very careful about how we kind of say and perceive those specific things, because it can definitely get into a place where, like, I know Christian women who are like, I want to be married, but it's like, sis, you don't give anybody the time of day. Like, you won't even have a conversation with the man if he looks your way and says hi, or you're pretty. Like, it's okay to say hi back. If he smells good, it's okay to tell him he smells. Never mind, don't pay me no attention. But if it's okay to show interest. Showing interest doesn't make you thirsty. It means that you might want to date somebody in the long run. So yeah.
Yes, no. I love that, and that's why I have this. That's why I'm talking about it, because when it comes to dating, that was just something I never really heard about. When it comes to the Christian perspective. Now, I've heard the world's perspective for sure, but I was like, wait, so did y'all date? Like, how was that? Because I was asking my parents, like, what did y'all date? Like, I just, you only know them as married, and also, when it comes to the leaders of the church, from my perspective, everybody was already married. And I remember, was that long ago, I remember I saw this pastor who was not married, and he was dating someone, and I was just like, what is this? Like, I had never seen it, because it's just like, oh, everybody's married, and whenever they talk about relationships, it's within the married thing, or it's, don't have sex until marriage, and then that's it. But it's no like, well, okay, yeah, y'all are dating. What do y'all, what?
Well, how did y'all get here? Somebody had to think somebody was cute. Somebody shot a shot. Somebody shot a shot. Somebody asked somebody grandma, somebody auntie, hey, it's such and such single. Like, there's that lead up to that part. And that's why I say, like, I think we kind of have to do a better job of defining that, especially as women in the church, as Christian women. We have to do a better job of having that conversation. Like, yes, you can, date with the intent of being married. However, there's like a part that leads up to that. Like, you don't just wake up married one day or whatever. There has to be some lead up to that.
Right. Tabitha, how do you feel about dating for fun?
I'm not sure what the term dating for fun means, but I would say that there's a need to have the experience of dating to understand the different personality types. To understand what emotional manipulation looks like, to understand what narcissism looks like, to understand a lot of personality traits and things that you will meet out there in the world. I think the church doesn't prepare you for that aspect, because when you're coming from the church, coming from the church, they sort of give you, they're supposed to court you. This is how it should look like. You hug from a distance, but there's also important aspects of personalities and how they treat you in relationships, and gaslighting as well. And that sort of knowledge is necessary and needed. And you sort of gain that throughout the dating process, and to understand even where you are. Like, I could definitely say I recognize there was an act of a level of codependency and people pleasing on my behalf that I wouldn't have understood had I not gone through dating experiences, and learn myself and learn how to be independent and have my life outside of whomever I'm dating. So yeah. I'm not sure if that's termed as dating for fun, but yeah.
Yeah, let me go ahead and explain that. I want to make sure I give you what my think of dating for fun is. That is like with no future in mind. It's just like, oh, we just kicking it right now. We're going on dates and stuff, but it's not like I want to marry you or I want to be with you or be in a full-on relationship, you know. But it's just like, you know, we just go on dates, we just giving each other attention because we just want that right now, you know. But it's not, there's no future in mind. Do you understand what I mean? Tabitha? Yeah, but you know, that's just what it's about. You know, it's just like, you know, no future, anything in mind. So that's why I wanted to ask that, because I know that's a big thing going on right now. It's just like, what is that for, you know, is that okay when it comes to Christian dating? I kind of want to move on to abstinence. And right now, I feel like that is, for me, I feel like it's one of the biggest issues when it comes to dating as a Christian is abstinence and saying, you know, no to that, you know, when the world has a very different view when it comes to that. So when it how do you feel like sex is viewed now when it comes to the world's view and versus the church's view of sex? Monay, what do you think?
In terms of what I believe the world's view is, it doesn't seem like sex is necessarily something that is sacred. It doesn't seem like it's something that is put up on a pedestal of high value. It doesn't seem like it's something that should be protected or kind of I guess, yeah, protected, I guess is the word that I want to use. It's something you do because you want to, because it feels good, because it's enjoyable, because you can. And then when you shift to the church's view, I think in terms of the whole concept and structure of covenant, it's something that's sacred and it's cherished and it's honorable because, you know, God created it and all these different things. But in terms of the church's view, I think the church looks at sex from one angle, and it doesn't necessarily give a broad, full range of the idea of sex. Because when you talk about sex in the church, the only conversation that is had is it's between a married man and a woman. And if you're not married, you don't need to be doing it. And so therefore, there's no conversation that needs to be had, because if you're not married, you shouldn't be having sex. So what is there to talk about? And so I think the church misses the conversation that could be had in terms of, okay, I'm single and I have a sex drive. Can somebody please have a conversation about this? Because it's not going to go away. It's there. It was put in there. It was put inside of me for a reason. Can we have this conversation? And I think because sex has been put in this box by the church of it's because it's just for married people, that we don't address the sex drive of the single person, or even the concept of, okay, there are parts of the body that are designed for pleasure. Being somebody who's not engaging in sexual activity, like, I'm literally told before I'm married, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. And then on my honeymoon, I'm just supposed to become this sensual, sexual being. And my husband is all like, oh yeah, I'm ready. And you're like, okay, wait, you're not supposed to see me naked. I mean, wait, it's supposed to be okay. But now I'm still kind of uncomfortable, even though you're my husband. And so I think the church misses the realistic, I don't even think realistic is the word I want to use. Practical, maybe. There's a practical piece missing from the conversation and the view of sex, in terms of sex, even from an anatomical perspective, from a pleasure perspective, from a sensuality perspective. It's just missed. And so because it's just this sacred thing, you know, that's placed in this box of it's just for married people, which, you know, rightfully so, God created it to be between a married couple. But there's more to it than just, it's just for married people, so we're not going to talk about it. Versus the world, they like, yeah, what you want to talk about? We can talk about it all. We can have all these conversations. And so I think people who grow up in the world and, you know, they never really grow up in the church, they have, I don't want to say a better understanding, but I think from the practical perspective of how everything works and what everything does and how to do certain things, they have a different understanding versus somebody who grew up in the church. Because I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't get saved until I was 18. And so I had to kind of walk through this journey of, oh, okay, well, they saying, you know, you're not supposed to have sex before you marry. Cool, I can do that. And so there was never really a conversation that gets had for young women or even women who are in their late 20s, 30s, or whatever about how to have this walk, have this sex drive, be natural in all that you are, and still say, you know what, I love God, but I still have these feelings inside of me. So there's lots of understandings on each side, and then there's a lot of misunderstandings, I think, on each side.
That I don't
That was
know. I don't
long-winded.
even know what
Sorry.
to say. No, that was good. That was good. I think it's great. I know the views are very different now. I feel because I kind of want Kendra, I'm sorry, Kendra. After I say this, I kind of want to hear your view of what I'm about to say. But I feel like this the view of sex of the church is kind of starting to change. Let me tell you why I think that. Because now we're talking about how sex is beautiful, which is something that I never really heard growing up until maybe the past 2-3 years. I started to hear pastors say, sex is a beautiful thing, and it's something that people, talking about sex drives as a single person, and talking about how how sex was designed by God, and this is supposed to be this beautiful thing that was supposed to happen, and not as something that's like, no, it's bad, or, and not wanting to have conversations about it, and talking about when it comes to dating, how you're supposed to be abstinent and stuff. I'm starting to see more conversations, and starting to, when it came to, I don't know if you all know who this is, but Pastor Mike Todd, he had the relationship goals series, and he had a book that came out, and he talked about the relationships and the different stages when it comes to dating and being married. He even talked about being divorced and all these different things. And it was just new to me, because I was like, wow, they're talking about it. This is something crazy. And you're starting to see more Christian influencers, or whatever they want to call themselves. You start to see them talk a little bit more about it. So I would say that I feel like the church, we still got a long way to go, but I do feel like the church's view of sex has kind of changed. When it comes to sex as a single person, and what's that like, and what we should, do, and having conversations about dating. I feel like it is changing. Kendra, what do you feel right now? Have you seen this, or have you not? What do you think about that?
I definitely think that it's very much based around, it kind of just depends. It depends on where you are attending church, who your pastor is, what their own understanding is. I think there's an age thing as well, where depending on what the demographic of your church is, like the age demographic is, there's definitely a need. I grew up in the church, and sex was just something that was not talked about. Like Monay said, like literally it was like, don't do it until you married. And that was it. That was the only thing that you ever heard about the word sex in general. Whereas I feel like, yes, there is definitely a space where people are, pastors and ministers are being more open about having that discussion, because at the end of the day, sex is beautiful. God created it. He created it as a form of worship. And yes, it's supposed to be within the confinements of marriage, within covenant. But there are a lot of places and spaces where those discussions aren't being held as heavily. I think that we're at a turning point for sure, but I feel like we gotta hurry up. Like we really have to hurry up in regards to having these discussions, because the world is like, or even back to your original question, is like, what is the perception of sex by the world? Like sex is as common as a handshake prior to COVID. Like that's literally like, people are just, it's just out here, it's everywhere, wherever we go, wherever you turn your head, when you turn the TV on, when you log into your social media, you're scrolling, you never know what you're going to see and what you're going to experience, just based off of like what you're taking in that moment. I think the church is making the turn. I will say that I feel like I go to a church and to a place in a space where my pastor is definitely talks about, just a lot of what Monay was talking about, the fact that God gave us a sex drive, it's a part of who we are. Now, what we do as far as our act of self-discipline, because that's our walk, that's a part of our walk, even in the scripture in Timothy, when it says God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. And some of those translations, sound mind actually translates to self-discipline. or like self-judgment, to actually like be honest about the fact that, okay, I'm in my feelings right now, I'm having a moment, but I'm not anybody's wife. So I need to have the self-discipline to be like, okay, God, I need you to help me manage these feelings. Not kill them off because I need them, because I'm going to be somebody's wife. So I need these feelings, okay? I need this, God. That's why you gave it to me, because you're a good father and you knew. But I need to be able to constrain them, and I need to be able to manage myself, and I need to be able to operate in an act of self-discipline until that time comes. Because even, you know, as a single person, like even when you get married, you can't always just have sex. Like, you got to go to work, the bills got to get paid, you know, family functions. Like, there are times when there's still an act of self-discipline. Now, the self-discipline looks different, but that's just different phases of our lives. So I really think that the church is definitely making a turn. Some spaces in the church, I can't speak for all spaces, but I definitely think that we have to do a better job, because, you know, we got little Christians out here being born every day. So somebody is out here having sex. So we might as well go ahead and start having a conversation about it.
I'm so weak. Not little Christian. She said little Christians.
Little Christians being born every day. Okay,
she said little
packed.
Christians being born.
For sure. Tabitha, I want to hear right now, you know, we talk about how church needs to have this conversation. Right now, what is the church risking by not having this conversation? What are they risking?
Wow.
Hit you different, didn't it?
Yeah.
That just came out. So take the time if you need to. If somebody want to jump in.
You know, a lot of opportunities for intervention. I think a lot of young people just want to be understood. They just want to be heard in those vulnerable moments, to be able to say, it's okay, I can help you navigate. And even if you can't help me navigate it, just allow me not to feel like I'm about to go to hell tomorrow. God's judgment is about to rain on me like brimstone. Like, that's sort of the fear-based aspect that sort of the church and religion gives to you. So I think just understanding also understanding too, that even the level of what the story of redemption really truly is. Like, if we look at God's example in the Bible, there is no story that he doesn't provide redemption or a way back into his good graces. He is always there offering forgiveness. And I think that the church offers us the complete opposite, especially when it comes to dating and marriages and relationships. You know, every other area of your life, like even with our career or schools, we're expected to figure it out. But when it comes to our relationship with God, we're not given that same level of grace. So I think to be able to have the space and the vulnerability so that we can come in those deep moments and say, hey, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. And I just need space and some guidance and some support.
Yes, I think that's amazing. And honestly, I feel like that's what gets people to come to the church, is being able to be like, you know what, there was this place where I was able to talk about my problems and I wasn't being judged by it. They weren't putting me down. They were like, you know what, I would do that too. But you know what, God helped me. He showed me that there's a way that you can live life without this, or that you can. And it's just like, I feel like that's what people are feeling more drawn to. And I think that's just amazing. I want to talk about virginity. When it comes to being a virgin and, you know, you're young or whatever, and you haven't done it, I want to hear you guys' feelings when it came to that. Do you all feel like there was pressure on you to lose your virginity, or did you feel like it was more frowned upon? Maybe you had two different types of pressures, whether it was like one was pressuring you to like lose it and the other one was like, no, I need you to keep it. What do you all feel about that? Tabitha, you can go ahead and take this one first.
The question was if there was pressure to lose your virginity?
Yes.
From who?
It can be from anywhere, whether it's from your family or just, I don't want to say the church, because we kind of already talked about that, but whether it's your family or friends, you may have gotten two different types of pressure. Maybe it was one but maybe they were both opposite or whatever, but how did you feel? Did you feel like there was pressure on you to lose your virginity or not?
I wouldn't say it was pressure. I think that if anything, there was pressure I put on myself just by wanting to be a part of what everyone else is discussing and talking about and experiencing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And that didn't come from the church, that came from elsewhere.
For sure. Monay, what about you? How do you, was there pressure on you to lose your virginity?
There wasn't pressure on me to lose my virginity. And like I said earlier, I didn't grow up in the church. I got saved right before I turned 18. And so I wouldn't say that there was pressure for me to lose it. If anything, I think there was more pressure to keep it, because going off to a college campus, like somebody actually said to me, like, dudes are gonna basically be coming at me like wolves or something like that, like sharks smell blood in the water, something along those lines. And so just this idea of being in a new environment, being by myself, because the school I went to was 2 hours away. And I got saved, but my family wasn't. And so it was just me trying to be saved and figure out what that looks like. Cause I got saved in January. I left to go to school, that fall. And so it was just me. And then I had to find a community and a church and really still figure out what does it mean or what does it look like to, to follow God? What does it look like to honor him? What does it look like to honor my body? And so, I think if anything, it was a matter of feeling pressure from a religious perspective. I have to not have sex because I'm not supposed to, and not necessarily relational perspective of because I'm in a relationship with God and I want to honor him and I want to, follow his word. Then because of that, I'm choosing to not do this as opposed to, well, I'm not supposed to, and I have to do everything within my power to not do it, if that makes sense.
Yes, I totally understand that. Kendra, what about you? Did you feel the same way or was it kind of different? Did you feel pressure to lose your virginity?
I feel like I had a very different experience in the sense of I love my mom. She's an amazing woman, but my mom was a very young mother. And I just knew for me, I didn't want that for myself. And because of that, if nothing else, because like I said, unfortunately, I grew up in a household where sex wasn't talked about. So for me, it was just kind of like, hey, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to keep myself from operating in that realm. And once I got into college, I'll say that very similar, like I got a community of people and it kind of created the space where I had a better understanding of, wow, okay, I thought this was just a decision that I made for myself, but this is really something that was kind of influenced by God before I could even recognize it for myself. More so because not only did I find myself being protective of my virginity, but I also found myself in a community of people who were also protective as well. And some of those people being friends who weren't necessarily protective of their own. And that's always been something that I've always thought about and recognized, where I have had like conversations, like I've had friends like flat out call me like, look, I know you want to date, but no, this cannot happen. And it's like, I know your business, right? Like, oh, okay, all right, cool. So having a community of having other people, so more than anything, I would say that I was very fortunate and very blessed where I had this layer of protection and this level of protection that's been very significant in that particular piece of my life.
Yes, I love how everyone has some different perspectives or whatever. I know for me, besides the church, we didn't really talk about it too much when it came to like sex or anything. Like we didn't talk too much about it. So I was okay with that. But I know when it came to like friends in school and stuff, I did feel pressure. I felt like it was kind of weird to be like, oh yeah, I'm a virgin. Like it was just something that you had to kind of keep on the hush, like, yeah, I'm a virgin, whatever. Or I feel like people, always hear people treat me like I'm a little baby or a little child. If you're, oh yeah, because I know you haven't experienced that, or people treating you like you're a little kid. And I think that was something that just kind of frustrated me and made me feel kind of annoyed. And it was just so, because everybody was talking about, yeah, I got this, I got these condoms, and I'm ready to do this or whatever. And it's just like, oh no, I'm good, over here. But and I felt like it was just something, and I think that's what helped me. That was something that I had to make sure that I keep myself from. I was like, God help me. And I had to get rid of some friends. I had to get rid of some people. Like, I can't be around y'all because y'all making me want to do certain stuff that I know I'm not supposed to be doing, especially when you're surrounded by people who are not, close to God. Like I was talking about earlier, how you were saying no to like dating people who don't believe in God and don't have a relationship. And that's also, it can also go with your friendships. Friendships could sometimes influence you a lot more than, these romantic relationships. So that was definitely something for me. And I think what helped me out also was that I was a bit of an introvert. I was at home, the only time I really went out was for school and for church. It wasn't for church, I really wouldn't know nobody. But I just like, I'm to myself, not me and God. That's all I need right now. Whatever. So I think that definitely helped out. But I feel like for me, it was, I definitely felt pressure to lose it. But I think it's just important for you to stand strong. And sometimes you got to be by yourself sometimes. You're going to be different. I want to know what it's, when it comes to abstinence and staying away from those things during the dating season, what do you all feel like this conversation should be had with the person that you're dating? When do you feel like you should talk with them about, yes, I am practicing abstinence, I believe in waiting until marriage? Monay, you can go first.
I think probably the sooner the better, only because you can then put in place whatever boundaries that you think will be necessary. Because if you just start putting up boundaries and the other person is like, I don't understand, what's the problem? Why can't we? Why are you whatever? It just seems like it would probably be like a blind side to them. Like, where is this coming from? But if you have the conversation up front and say, yo, you said you want to go on a date, that's cool. Just understand that when I get dropped off at home, I'm going in the house by myself. Or when we go out on this date, I would feel more comfortable if we go in a group because X, Y, and Z. And so putting that out there up front, I think would help when you're in the process of establishing boundaries, because it wouldn't seem like stuff is just coming out of nowhere. So I think the sooner the better.
Yes. Tabitha, how do you feel?
For me, I think it depends on the person and the vibe that you have with them, and where you feel like it's going with a particular person. I don't feel like it's something that I would more so mention straight out the gate. But if I feel like this is somebody that I could invest my time into before we date exclusively, around that time frame is when I would mention it. And when you also notice that they're more becoming also more physical with you. And physical, I mean, just more touchy-feely. You know how, people, when you have more of an endearing relationship, you tend to be, a bit more affectionate. So I think that that's around the time that I feel like it's important to discuss.
Yes. Kendra, what about you?
I think the earlier the better. For me in particular, I feel like that's something that I have to be very intentional about mentioning from jump, because I'm just, the way that I'm set up, like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to invest time in somebody who may feel like this isn't something that they can commit to. Because there are, people stand in different places, even as Christians, people stand in different places when it comes to abstinence. So I typically have that conversation pretty early. Like, if, I meet somebody, we exchange contacts or whatever else. If we're having a phone conversation, typically I'm going to mention that very early to let them know, like, hey, just so you know, I'm abstinent. I will remain abstinent until I'm married. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's not your vibe, that's totally okay. If you good and you can deal with this and this is something that you're on too or whatever, like, cool. I've had a lot of different responses. Sometimes you have guys who are just like, well, man, you so cool. Like, we didn't just kind of started to get to know each other already. But I can't see myself doing that. That's fine. may the Lord's grace be upon you. Like, I'm good. That doesn't change my answer or my response. I've had guys be like, well, that's not something I've practiced in my own personal life, but that is something that I'd be willing to consider the more I get to know you. Okay, cool. Make a mental note of it, keep it moving. And then I've had guys who just be like, nah, I'm cool on it, or we could be friends. That's fine too. I just know for me, being honest about it from jump is just very, very important to me, because I know for me, like, time is just one of those things where I just don't play when it comes to my time in particular. So
yes, I definitely think it's important having that conversation and understanding what is abstinence. You may have to ask them that question, and and don't take for granted, oh yeah, they're a Christian, so they know, so I don't have to have that talk. You do, because sometimes they are the ones that you have to watch out for the most, which can be sad, but it's true. Like, not everybody is practicing the same thing. So I think it's definitely important for you all to have those conversations.
And even to add to that, I'm sorry, but to add to that, even talking about, okay, when we talk about abstinence, if you're saying you're abstinent too, what does abstinence, like you said, like, what does abstinence look like for you? Like, what does that mean? Because I know for me, it means these boundaries. It means that, I got an accountability partner and I got a curfew that I have to meet because I just know me. And that's not saying I'm a dirty, filthy person, but I'm flesh. Like, I have flesh, and I know that, there are certain conversations I have to stay away from, or just being mindful of those types of things. But there, even a discussion of being honest and being legit. Like, okay, when I say abstinence, what does that actually mean for you? What would that look like for you? And this is what it looks like for me. So also having that, because people have different perceptions. When you say abstinence and you say you're abstaining, people have different understandings of what they qualify as sex. So even thinking about that as well.
Yes, I think it's important to make sure you had that conversation, like I was saying before, and I think that was great what you added. Y'all had some great points about dating. I love it. We're gonna move on to segment 3, and that is right now our monthly declaration for the month of September is, hold on, let me pull it up. Okay, I declare that this month I will make new godly connections with others. I will, with the help of God, build a circle of people that can add value to my life and support me while I make sure to do the same for others. If everyone can just give a one-word answer, or like a one-sentence answer, if that you have to, about what you are going to do to better your romantic life. Kendra, you can go first.
Dang it.
I just realized you just finished talking. I'm sorry, but I'm giving it to you.
No, it's okay. What am I gonna do to better my romantic life? Look at this. Can I pass and can it come back to me? No. I guess I'm gonna step outside of my comfort zone a little bit. I don't know how yet, but now that I said it, I put my word out there, so that means I have to do it. So I don't know. We'll figure it out along the way. But I guess, yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know what that looks like yet, but
yeah,
because I can be a pretty laid back person sometimes. So maybe just be a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more enthusiastic, possibly. A little razzle dazzle, possibly. We gonna go with that. Yeah, we gonna say that's what we gonna say. We're gonna say that I'm gonna step outside of my comfort zone a tad bit.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Monay, what is something you want to do to better your romantic life?
Probably focus. I usually get a lot of work done at the end of the day after the kids are sleeping. I can actually focus on my business stuff. But that's usually the time my husband is actually free and available, because he works during the day and he's studying for this test. He's a roadway designer, so he's taking his professional civil engineering test in October. So just when there's time available And I don't necessarily have to be working, just take that time to focus on us and actually spend time together because there's only so many hours in a day.
Right, right. Oh, I love that. Tabitha, what about you? What are you doing to better your romantic life?
Similar to Kendra, sort of to be open to new experiences, different type of people from all different walks of life. Not to be so close-minded.
I like that. Not to be so close-minded. I love that. I think for me, when it comes to my romantic life, is to be more upfront about what I want, and not just be like, oh, I just want to be nice, like, no, go ahead and say what you need to, because I mean, this is your time as well, you don't want to be wasting your time, and that's just something I don't like doing. So I think it's just being upfront. Y'all, I enjoyed this episode. This episode kind of went a little bit longer than I was expecting. I have more questions, but when we have everybody together, I know that's gonna be something, because I know the men, we got some strong-willed men, and we also got some strong-willed women. So I'm just excited. I'm gonna sit back and watch. I'm gonna have my popcorn be ready to go. No, I'm kidding. But I think it's just gonna be awesome. I cannot wait for it. We're getting ready to head out. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to have each person, if you can tell people where to find you and let them know what you're doing a little bit, Yeah, so Tabitha, you can go first. You can let them know where they can follow you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it was a pleasure meeting you guys. First, it was a pleasure meeting Destiny, but Kendra and Monay, was great sharing this podcast episode with you guys, and I'm excited about how it's gonna play out with the guys next. You can find me at I am Tabitha Esther. I am a preventative wellness coach, and you can find all things womanly related to wellness on at I am Tabitha Esther, and just pieces of me and my writing. So yeah, it was nice meeting you guys.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Monay, you can go next. Where can they find you?
So they can find me on Instagram at Monay K. Miller, or my business page at The Miller Initiative. You can also find The Miller Initiative on Facebook, or you can visit my website, www.themillerinitiative.com. I do life coaching. Me and my husband co-own The Miller Initiative. Our mission is to change the narrative of the Black family by empowering all members to achieve peace through the pillars of marriage, family, and finances. And so we actually have our podcast, which you can also stream from our website, or you can go on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you normally stream. So we have that as well. And yeah, we're just out here trying to, strengthen some Black families and change the narrative and restore some hope. So that's what we're doing out here.
Yes, I'm here for it. All the way here for it. Kendra, where can they find you?
So thank you all for this opportunity. You ladies are amazing. I had such a good time. I'm so excited. I mean, Monay, I already know you, but still, so nice to meet everybody else. Outside of that, I go by KG the Kid, creatively, or whatever else. I have a brand by the name of Confessions from a Tilted Crown. It's just really just about the journey to womanhood and how it looks different for all of us, but God gives us all purpose. So you come on Instagram, on Facebook at Confessions from a Tilted Crown. You'll see some of my blog. You'll see some of the things that I'm doing. I rap a little bit. I'm just an all-around artist. Like, that's what I do. But it's really just about the significance. It's really just about the significance of helping people be reminded that, God has a purpose for all of us, no matter where we are, no matter who we are, and it looks different, but we all were created in His image. So yeah, that's me. So at Confessions from a Tilted Crown.
Yes, I'm all the way here for all of this y'all talking about. This is great. I mean, Black women just being Black women, just being excellent. I'm loving it. I'm all the way here. This is great. I want to go ahead and thank the audience. Thank y'all so much for joining us for today's episode. Make sure you're here next week. If you missed last week's episode or the episodes before, make sure you catch up so you know what's going on. My name is Destiny. I am your host. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are... Why don't I just look at my notes? We post every Sunday. You all can listen to this episode, listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Audible, what is the other one? Google Podcasts and the Podbean app, all of these different platforms. Make sure you let other people know about it. Please share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram at the Destined Life _, and you can also like our Facebook page. I think I already said that, but anyway, thank you all so much for being here. And as always, my name is Destiny Harris, and I am encouraging you and reminding you to choose today to live your best life. And that's Destined Life. God bless, and I love you all. Thank you all so much for joining me.